anyways, and this was kind of the biggest thing that this is actually the biggest thing I ever did as a police officer. One evening I was walking on the boardwalk. It was an Ocean City, Maryland. It was a vacation town. So I was on duty on the boardwalk. And I was walking down the boardwalk, and a little boy came up to me, like 10, 11 years old. And he said, "Excuse me, officer, I think there's some guys fighting down the street here in this dark alley." He said, "Because I just walked by and I can hear them like yelling and scuffling and stuff." And I said, "Okay, thank you, get out of here. I mean, get away from this place." So I sent the little boy away, and I called on my radio, like, "I've got to report this." And so I left the boardwalk, and I walked down the street and looked down this alley, and the alley goes down into darkness. That's not good, right? So I pull out my little flashlight, and I start walking down the alley, and while I'm walking down, some guy walks past me. And I kind of look at him, and he's like... But, he didn't look... I needed to find out what was going on down in the alley, so I didn't stop him or anything. If there was something going on down in the alley, I needed to find out. So I kept walking, and I got to the bottom of the alley, and I'm standing there with my little flashlight looking around, and all of a sudden I come around to this one corner, and here's a guy laying there, and he's still conscious, but he's like, he's had the bloody pulp beaten out of him. And he's on his hands and knees, and he kind of looks up at me. And suddenly I realized the guy that just walked past me had probably been one of the people that beat him up. Because it was a dead end. It was kind of a little dead end alley. So I ran back up, and the guy was walking toward the boardwalk, and he was looking behind him to see if I was following. When he saw me come back up the alley, he took off. And so I went running after him, and I'm trying to run, and we've got like 40 pounds of gear strapped on us, right? So I'm trying to chase the guy, and I'm calling on the radio for backup, and I see him run into a video arcade.
Oh, wow.
So I run into the arcade, and there were some other people in the arcade. Of course, they saw this guy come running in, and they all went... And they pointed to one of those photo booths with the little curtain you pull across. So I took out my nightstick, boom, and I hit the side of the photo booth, and I said, come out of there." And I'm standing back away from him. He didn't have anything in his hands, so you can't pull your weapon, right? You can't pull a gun on somebody that's not armed. So that's why I didn't pull my gun. Like, come on! What are you gonna do? You can't shoot him because he doesn't have a weapon. So he comes out. This is the best part. He throws the curtain open. He goes, "What's the trouble, officer?" Like he didn't even realize, that I'd been chasing him. And I go, come here, stand up. I'm going to demonstrate. So this guy's like, "What's the problem, officer?" And I go, "How about fight?" And I spin him around and shove him up against the thing. And I start getting his arms behind him. By this time, some backup. You were amazing. Thank you. By this time, my backup officers get there, right? And they're holding on to him. And I'm going to go back and check on the guy that was down and beaten up, right? Well, by this time, this guy has stumbled back up onto the boardwalk. And he's standing there. And suddenly you see, he was beat really bad. And the whole front of his shirt was solid red. And so I was like, "Dude, man," I'm like, "What happened to you?" And he looks down at his shirt and sees all the blood. And then he lifts his shirt up, and there's a puncture in his chest where he'd been stabbed. And blood was going like this out of the hole. Sorry, but just telling you the story. That's what would happen. What was happening? And when he saw it, he collapsed. He fainted when he saw himself bleeding. What turned out to be the case was, and I'll just wrap it up here for you. What turned out to be the situation was the guy that I arrested, and his brother, the guy that I arrested and his brother were from Baltimore. They had records, both of them. They were career criminals. Both of them had been arrested for heavy-duty things already. And they were down in Ocean City, and they met this guy in a bar. And the guy was flashing a wad of money. And so they made friends with the guy, and said, hey, why don't you come to this bar down the street with us, man? We know this great bar, it's really cool. And he's like, okay. And they're walking him down this alley, and then they jump him, and they start beating him up, and they're going to steal his money. And as they're reaching around his waist to find the money, they find a knife on in a little leather pouch. They took his own knife and stabbed him with it. So, through investigation, we found out the other guy that got away. James and Albert Smitley were their names. I still remember that. And we prosecuted them both for assault with intent to murder. And because it was their third offense in Maryland, they got like 15 years. So, and I testified, and it was pretty heavy duty. I mean, one of those kind of cases is pretty serious stuff. So that was one of the more dramatic things that happened to me.